You guys ready? All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cool. And welcome back, everyone, to episode 15 of season 5 of the Shop Stool Podcast. And this is the final episode of season 5 of the Shop Stool Podcast. We made it to the end of another one. I think we're actually a little bit later this time, aren't we? Because we normally close up shop a bit earlier.
Yeah, I think we did about a month longer this year. Yeah. I don't know how many episodes that translated to versus season 4, but yeah, it's felt like a big one this year. I think as well with wood dust on top of everything, but we'll go through that. So it's a bit of a year in review episode and what's coming up.
How cool. I was just going to butt in and say how cool it was talking to Patrick last week. What a brilliant guy, huh?
Yeah.
That guy. It was great to have someone who, one, just wanted to talk to us and we could just go and get a cup of tea while he was rambling on. But he rambled on some awesome stuff.
They were great ramblings, yeah.
Yeah.
It's we've been so lucky with all the guests this season. So should we do a wee name drop? Let me go through them. Patrick last week, Jess Humpson, Phil Morley, April Wilkerson, Patrick Holcomb, Matt Esley, Jimmy DeResta. Like, this is insane.
That's a crazy.
Actually, you're right. We've had some real big superstars. Yeah.
Did I miss any, or is that? I think that's everyone, right?
Yeah. Did you say April as well?
Yeah, I said April. Yeah. But that is like, if you had told me this time last year that we were going to get to interview those people, and not only that, but we were going to actually all finally meet as a trio.
Yeah,
and present a show together. It's been a whirlwind year.
Yeah, it's wild when you frame it like that. Yeah, hopefully 2024 is going to be even bigger.
Yeah, I think it's been really good. It's been really good. Like, still having a core of Australian and Kiwi guests, because that's our kind of forte, but also mixing it with like the real cream of international makers. So I think we'd like to continue that next year. We don't want to just go all international and have the issue of time zones and all that kind of stuff. But just going in the mix was really cool.
But it also shows a nice or a good trajectory or progression, if you will. Because anytime you start these sort of projects like the podcast, you start locally and you build out. And I feel like we spent a long time doing this very small, very locally. And so it feels like we've branched out into that international scene at the appropriate time. We're at a big enough level now that we can hold our own and be confident and interview people like Jimmy without it feeling like there's a not a big power difference, but there's one person who's miles ahead of the other person, and then you end up with this weird conversation which just feels forced. We're now at a level where we can control that conversation.
I would say one of the main aspects to that is that we've done it without sponsorship as well. Like there hasn't been the obligation of interview this person because they use these tools. So that's been really good.
Talking about sponsorship, one of the things I did have in my notes today, and I really want to start off with this.
Are we getting a sponsor? We're gonna get some Manscaped, yeah.
Donations. I just wanted to start off this episode just to say a very big thank you to everyone who is still donating to the show. We've got some regulars that come in. It's massive for us. It's really awesome. We were talking about wood dust. It helped us get to and through wood dust.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to start off by saying a very big thank you to everyone who's donating to the show.
Yeah, like we say, we don't really do it for the money, but when it just shows that people are keen for us to continue, it'll pay for a microphone, or it'll pay for us to meet up and go for a beer. Like, it's been really cool, and thanks to everyone for the support. So the link is in our Instagram page. If you click on the bio, there's zero obligation to do it. Nothing will be behind a paywall. There is no Patreon. Like, you don't have to do a reoccurring payment. If you want to give us $3 for a coffee, you can give us $3 for a coffee. But $3 doesn't buy you a coffee in Melbourne anymore.
not the time you want to drink anyway.
Yeah.
Speaking of Melbourne, Brian, next time I come and visit you, are you going to be in Melbourne?
Yeah.
Well, that's a very interesting thing because we might have sold our house last week.
You might have?
Yeah.
We did. Yeah.
No
You
way.
did? Oh, awesome. Yeah.
It settled just before the auction.
Really?
We had a private offer. The auction was going to be the day before my daughter's first birthday, and it was Stress City. There'd been interest in the house, but not like overwhelming. We had 2 people. One person kind of hit a limit, and the other woman bought it, and it was a good offer. So it enables us to go and find a property somewhere that we actually want to live in, rather than a knockdown.
Yeah, awesome.
So
Out of interest, why an auction? Was that the realtor's advice?
I don't know. Like, I'm no real estate expert, but then again, I don't think real estate agents are either. I don't know. They always want to drum up, one person versus another person. I still think you can do that. If you're a salesperson, you can do that as a private sale without having to dip anything into anything illegal.
Yeah.
But
Auctions are a bit strange with houses because it's all predicated on the idea that someone's going to try and one up the next person and you get more and more money. And because I've sold 4 or 5 houses, and I've done auctions a couple of times, and one of them my wife and I just wanted. It was a tiny little flat we had when we were just young, and we just wanted what it was worth. We just wanted to put it on the market, and then they've kind of finagled us into doing an auction, and it just turned into this crazy bidding war, and we got a lot more for it than we wanted. But I didn't want the people to spend that much on it, and I was kind of disappointed that they were forced to spend what they did where it wasn't actually worth it. So
it's a good old property bubble. But we're sort of fortunate that
global housing crisis. Yeah.
Oh man! Now that we're looking sort of semi-regional in the fringe around Melbourne, most of the sales are private sales. So there's no open homes, no sort of. It's like private inspections, private offers. So you can sort of. It feels a bit less rushed, and that well, I know that we're rushing because the clock is ticking on a 90-day settlement, but it feels a little bit less silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this house that I'm in now was a private sale. It was the first one I've done. So we bought it as a private sale. I'll go private any day of the week now, because your solicitor or whoever it is does all the legal stuff. Why even you've got websites to do your advertising. Why would you even need that agent?
Yeah, to pay for the auctioneer, and
particularly
all that.
as a buyer.
There's definitely pros and cons from my point of view, but yes, I think it can be, certainly if you're selling, you can certainly save yourself a bunch of money if you go private.
Yeah. So we've been looking at a ton of places. God, I've covered it so many times in the podcast, but it's actually happening now. So we've been looking in the Dandenongs. I don't know do you guys know the Dandenongs? Sort of southeast of Melbourne. Beautiful. Parts of it look very, very Kiwi forest, big, massive ferns and pungas and all that kind of stuff. But then you have these huge, 80-metre high Vic ash trees,
right?
Mountain ash that they won't backburn the mountain ash. So the fire risk is just through the roof, which I don't know whether it's just me as somebody that wasn't brought up around it, and somebody that sort of went through a few near calls. Like Lanny nearly got caught up in Black Saturday. She drove through it, which were the really bad ones in 2008, I think it was. And then my brother-in-law nearly got caught in the ones in New South Wales and Victoria in 2019, 2020. So it's just always been at the back of my mind. And I know you can't escape it with regional Australia. Everywhere burns, even Tassie burns, Queensland burns. But it's just about finding a place where I feel safe, where I know that there's access in and access out. Whereas some of the place, like up in the Dandenongs, it's very, very narrow. There's a lot of one-way roads. Like the CFA, the fire brigade won't go down some of them. If you're down there and your house is on fire, your house is gone. But it doesn't really matter, because if I see a 40-degree fire day forecast, I am gone. I am getting a hotel in Melbourne. I am out of there so fast. I'm not one of the stay and defend your home people, but we just love a property where I'm not constantly nervous about it. So we're sort of looking north and west a bit more now. So kind of getting up towards where Gem and Like Butter are, but not quite that far north. So sort of around Macedon and then around Ballarat.
Cool.
So there's some pretty cool places there, and the land's a bit flatter, which obviously makes the workshop opportunities a bit better.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, are you looking for a home workshop?
Yeah. I mean, as much as I'd love to build one, it's the fact that I then would have to lease somewhere there for like 6 months to work out of, or I just put my stuff in storage and find another job for 6 months, and I'm out of pocket 60 grand, 80 grand, whatever it is, and at the mercy of trades and trying to find builders to put down slabs and erect the shed. So there's things like that, and then the depreciation of it. Do I want something that's brand new, or do I want a shed where, you know, somebody else has paid for it and I can make changes to it if I want? I can extend it, I can you know, put in some extra skylights, and it's not me paying the upfront cost and dealing with the delays of it. But a lot of them there kind of have 80 to 120 square meter workshops on them.
Nice.
The neighbours are sort of, the block sizes are bigger, so you're kind of getting up to, well, the starting point is sort of 2,500 square meters for a block size, getting right up to like 30, 40 acres. Yeah, so ideally I wouldn't quite want 30 or 40 acres to look after, and fire manage as well, but I kind of like the idea there you're a bit further away from neighbours, and all those complications. Your nearest neighbour, Joey, is how far?
150 meters.
Yeah,
probably.
So I know some councils in Victoria, 150 is the threshold where you don't need to get a building permit or a planning permit for a woodworking business.
Okay.
But it just varies council by council. So
Sorry, say that again. I missed that.
150 meters is the threshold. Once you're there or over, you don't need a planning permit to operate a woodworking business, because it's not going to be, the sound isn't going to be impacting on the neighbours.
Is that specifically woodworking because of the noise?
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's
That's
a list of things, body work, shops and all that kind of stuff, anything that's loud. But like I said, it just varies council by council. So I'm trying to sniff out which councils are the most open to having it. The fact that there's bigger sheds and bigger blocks west and north of Melbourne, I think it will be a lot easier. And there's a pretty cool little creative scene happening there as a result of that. Like around Ballarat, there's some cool things. And then obviously around Castlemaine, there's been a lot of makers move to there. But it's just kind of, it's all fed from the fact that commercial real estate in the city is just starting to get unaffordable.
Yeah,
Because
I think
that's far from Melbourne. That's not a...
It's in... Ballarat's an hour and 20, hour and 30.
Yeah, right.
So it's still doable. Like, it's not like I'm moving to Tassie and having to ship furniture back to the mainland. Like, it's still stuff that I would hand deliver it to Melbourne. I would sort of just have to be more organised with my time, you know, if I'm going to deliver a piece of furniture. Yeah. Deliver a piece of furniture and then collect the lumber for the next job and bring it home.
That's exactly what I do. Yeah. I mean, sometimes if I don't do that, I will kind of group all my orders as best I can into like one big trip, and I'll just go and buy like shit tons of stuff for 3 or 4 different jobs and spend all day in the city and drive back with a loaded up van, and that's me sorted for a while.
So it's just going to require a bit of, I don't know, a little bit of adapting. But at the same time, like, I'm quite excited by the idea of getting out. Like, I've lived in Melbourne now for nearly 20 years, 18 years. And I love the city. And I love living in the kind of inner city. But the idea of living in outer suburbia, to me, is just... It's not what I want for me. It's not what I want for my family.
Yeah.
And being on the fringe, like being able to live in the bush but close to a little village. And then, we're talking like a 10 or 15 minute drive to the centre of Ballarat, like a town. Do they call it a city? They call it a city. A city of 100,000, 150,000 people with a 10-minute drive away actually puts me closer to a lot of infrastructure than I am in Melbourne. Like, how far can I get in a 10-minute drive in Melbourne? Fuck all.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
a few kilometres sometimes. So,
Right,
so yeah, it's exciting. And then Lanny's going to try to work remotely most of the week, and maybe commute once or twice a week on the train.
Cool.
So yeah, it's been hectic. We've had a 1-year-old's birthday. Lanny turned 40, so happy birthday, Lanny. The house settled, and we had a new niece born in 6 days.
Fun times.
Yeah, fun times.
And what's happening with your workshop now?
Well, I'm still here. Like, I'll give them notice probably in the next month or so. Like, they're definitely looking to move to the next stage, i.e. put another cafe in here. All the landscaping works are all finished. Actually looks quite good, except for the timber benches. Like, if only they knew someone on site that could make... Like, if only there was somebody here that they could have just called and said, we'll give you a discount on rent that month, and, you make some nice timber benches. If only. But... If only. But yeah, it feels like they're moving to the next stage, and that's fine, The thing that I never wanted with my business was to... I didn't want to work in a tilt-up concrete box. Like, I find that I get inspiration from the places that I work in, and whether that's the actual physical structure or the environment that I work in. But yeah, being in a tilt-up... And I know lots of people do it because they have to do it. But I'm kind of open to the idea of change. Yeah. And if I'm out in the countryside and I can open my doors and look out to nature and still hear birds...
Oh, man.
Even if it's just another tin shed, I'll be a happy man.
I can see you in this, like, beat-up old wooden shed.
Oh,
it's
mate,
falling apart. It's leaking in big rains.
Yep. Yes, please.
Doors open. Massive 2-meter high grass as far as the eye can see. Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be a way to work.
I agree, but, something just happened at my place just 2 nights ago.
Oh, no.
That I was like, well, I'm glad I just have a steel box workshop and there's only one way to get in. I've got some security stuff, and we caught some people prowling about.
Serious?
And,
Right.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of nowhere. And so there's been a little bit of weird things happening around the community, and so I've taken some extra measures. But, if my workshop was an old rundown thing with windows around the back or something, you could gain access very easily.
I'd say realistically, I will be in a tin shed. As much as I love the dream of an old wooden barn, I think a tin shed is like, it's the reality. But yeah, I might have to wire something up like a Home Alone style trap, people dancing in the... Yeah.
That's the one.
You go over a trip line and you hear my voice go, "Get the fuck out of here!"
So were they in and around the workshop or just on the property?
Yeah, both.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah. And did someone scare them off, or did they just...
No,
move off
my
themselves?
camera wasn't set up correctly at the time, but I caught a glimpse, and then so I've now changed a bunch of things and added some stuff and changed the settings on my camera so we can get better footage. And so I should be alerted more readily next time anything happens.
I've just turned all of my cameras, because I've got cameras around my property. I've just turned all of mine off at night now so they can record during, they'll record, but they won't actually alert me.
Right.
Because otherwise you just spend your life being woken up by trees blowing and this and that.
Possums.
And then the one time when it does actually happen, and this was just before we went to Tassie, we had cops into our yard, come through our front gates, wandering around the yard looking for someone, and then leave. And I was oblivious, completely oblivious. I woke up to all these notifications on my phone, and there were 4 cops swarming around my yard, and I slept through the whole thing.
Townsville, hey?
Yeah. How's the staircase going, Joe? Are you
started?
That is progressing slowly. The lady's coming to see me next week after quite a long hiatus of not much communication because everyone's just waiting for things to happen. But it looks like it's going ahead, which is remarkable, and I'm kind of shitting myself. And it's going to be interesting because the stairs themselves I don't think are going to be too difficult coming up, but the handrail is going to be very different and it's going to be so classic, but it's so hard to pull it off and fall inside of a classic look and fall inside of modern safety rules that it's going to be tricky. We got
when you say classic, you mean the profile of it, like
like a classic steel kind of spindles with like twists on them and a nice steel, but then a wooden hand cap to it, which has got to be twisted up around the stairs. And then how do they integrate? How does it not fall over? And who's going to say it's strong enough to please the council? And how are we actually going to do it? We had one quote for the steel part of the handrail. 50,000 was just for the balustrades, and that is more than the stairs cost. So the lady's like, I'm not sure we're going to just have to throw it out the window or whatever. So we've kind of gone back to other ideas, and it's very. Everybody who sees the drawings goes, wow, beautiful drawings, beautiful design. I don't want to even put a price on it. I'll just do whatever I have to do, charge up. And it's like very difficult for the client.
What a world to live in, where you look at a staircase and you think, I'm going to make this opulent piece of art. Yeah, 50 grand's probably a bit too much. Let's try something else. Man, I don't know about you guys, but if the stairs go up and the stairs go down, the stairs are good for us.
That's kind of where I fall on it, but
it's just it's a different way of looking at art and life, isn't it? The ornament.
Yes.
Yeah, and as we've said, we're all. I think we've said this before. We're woodworkers. We're not necessarily purchasers of buyers of furniture.
That's right.
Even though we're woodworkers, we wouldn't buy the type of furniture that we make.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually thinking about a conversation with Patrick last podcast, and his description of really what came across to me was that he is an artist, and what he wanted was a very specific kind of furniture art, essentially, I think is what I would call what he makes. And it's very thought out and very specific and kind of perfect. And I was thinking, I don't fall into that category. I don't think, if that's what a furniture maker is, which I believe he is, I don't think that's what I am. I think I would fall under I think the term maker of things is probably more appropriate for what I do. And at first I was kind of disappointed and a bit depressed that I was like, I'm not, because furniture maker to me is like the grand, seems like such a great title, I suppose. And to admit that maybe that's not where my strengths lie was a little bit depressing. But actually I think I'm much happier acknowledging that's not really where my strengths lie, though I can make those things. I prefer to have lots of different weird things going on, and I think that I'm more of a purveyor of things that can't be found elsewhere. And I think that I'm happy with that. Seems to pay the bills, so carry on.
Can't argue with that.
I think it's the way different people are wired, Some people like chair makers, like Byrne loves making chairs and will make chairs for the rest of his life. But yeah, I know what you mean. Art versus not even practicality, but I don't know, making pieces to be used as opposed to being looked at. And I would probably see myself as falling somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I like to incorporate sort of bits of storage and bits of personality of the clients into the pieces and how they use it, how like they individually use it that another person might not. But at the same time, I want them to be like aesthetically pieces of art.
Awful.
Yeah.
When I was in Tassie last year, we seemed to be doing a lot of episodes where it was very design. I don't want to say woo-woo, but there was a lot of that involved, you know. So I went out and I bought myself this book. So this is a design book. It's all design over the last 20th century. And I thought I'm going to influence myself by reading up about designs and how they've, you know, evolved over the century. And then I think I got about 20 pages in and I just thought, this is boring as batshit. I mean, it's some of it's fascinating, but on what you're saying, Joey, that's not me. That's me trying to be
something else,
like Patrick. But that's just Maybe one day down the line you'll get there. But for now, yes, I'm way too practical for that arty conceptual side.
It's an interesting thing though, like trying to school yourself in the history of design and whether the history of design is relevant. I personally think it is, but again, that's just the schooling that I had. But maybe it would be more worthwhile rather than looking at images of things that were made in the 1920s and 30s that don't necessarily inspire you. Maybe I'm sure I've spoken about it in the podcast before, but one of the only books that I took away from architecture school that I brought back again when I started tutoring architecture was 101 Things I Learned in Design School or Architecture School, I think it was called. I'll get the name of it actually. And that teaches you design ideas rather than necessarily, this is a chair that was designed in 1923 by this random German bloke that you can't pronounce. And it was that whole school of, I did an article on it in Wood Review as well, but it's like an approach to design where if you want to make something tall, make it really, really tall. If you want to make repetition in the piece to sort of draw a person's eye across it, put lots of repetition in it. Don't do it 3 times, do it 25 times. Things like that where it's design ideas rather than design history. Because I know what you mean. It can be a little dry and it won't get you thinking. You'll be looking at this chair going, well, I can't make that. I haven't got access to bending machine to bend steel with. Whereas if it's if it's a one-line phrase that then sparks your own thinking rather than giving you a visual cue of this is what a chair should look like. I don't know. Yeah,
and that's what this book was. I was intending was for that inspiration, and it's obviously not to take anything away from that history of design, because of course it is relevant and it is valuable, but it didn't have the profound effect that I wanted it.
It
didn't move me in that direction. So maybe what you're talking about, Bryan,
I've got it. It's called 101 Things I Learned in Architecture School by Matthew Frederick, and it's like $25 online wherever you want to buy it. I'm not telling you to buy it from
have a look at
Jeff.
it.
Don't buy it from Jeff Bezos. Buy it from someone else. But yeah, it's a really good book. Just little small sketches and one word or one line phrases and things.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, next year I am hoping to have myself a new office downstairs in the workshop. So that's one of my projects for next year, is to make a little 2.7 by 1200 box in my workshop, nice and just wide enough for a desk.
Yeah.
And it'll be nice to have a bit of a library of some books in there. I'm so excited about this project.
Oh, about your little office?
Yeah. Well, sorry, you were gonna say, Joe?
I was just going to cut back to what we were just talking about before, because I wanted to talk to you guys about this. Do you often have to get, maybe not Robin, Bryan, do you often have to get quotes in from like metal workers or something, that stuff you can't do? Do you sometimes have to get stuff made for pieces just so you can finish or quote a job?
If it's like, I mean, I weld, but I weld slowly. So if it's if it's one table frame, I can weld one table frame, and I can do it relatively efficiently. But if I'm say I'm 30% slower than getting a professional welder who's trained in it to do it. Fine to do it for that one job. The second that you do 10, 15, it's putting me way back. So then I'll outsource for that. But in terms of quoting stuff, I'm trying to think of things that, I don't have a laser etcher. So if I need laser etching rather than CNC engraving that I can do on the shaper, I have to get a quote for that. So I've got good old Nick, the boat builder, does that for me. CNC stuff, if it's 3D carving, then I'll use Like Butter. So yeah, it's generally stuff that I've built up a network for. I can always kind of quote a ballpark for it. And, I'd always quote the high end of the ballpark to the client and then say, if you want to proceed, I'll get an accurate quote.
So this brings me to my point, is that I could have same thing as you. I've got a network of people I've used over the years. Sometimes I go out to some random new company because I need a specific thing. Mm-hmm. For example, that staircase, I was kind of saying to the client, and I've noticed this over the last year, I could in the past ballpark a price for somebody and then say, okay, then we'll get a quote on it. I was ballparking like $15,000 for that staircase to be welded up, and it comes back at 50, and I was just like, holy shit, this is ridiculous. I just had a client contacted me recently. I'm doing some other work for them. They wanted a set of industrial style steel framed French doors going between two rooms, like a media room and a lounge room. So really simple, only about 2 meters wide, like 4 panes of like 4 glass lights, and 2 of them open up, right?
Right.
The quote comes back at $28,000. Whoa! And this kind of thing just seems to be happening more and more, where stuff, the cost of things, I don't know where it's coming from, but the cost of things seems to be just getting horrendous.
But it probably starts at the start. Like, the reason why there are fewer makers in cities anymore is because commercial rents. So if commercial rents go up and people are staying working with higher material costs, higher overheads, higher bills, it's just, I hate the phrase, but it's just cost of living crisis.
The long and short of that is the client comes to me and says, look, this is the price. And I'm like, that really sounds outrageous. Yeah. And I price it up, and I can do it for about 10 out of timber. And it's like, why? I don't understand. Like, it just seems really weird. I don't trust my ballpark figures anymore. I'm kind of double checking everything I've always thought now, because everything has just gone pretty crazy.
Do you think there's a lot of people pricing on the I don't want that job?
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, and if they quote like that on 5 jobs and land one of them, that they're getting 20%, 30% more than they would have done otherwise.
I've never understood that philosophy, because when you get that 1 out of 5 that says yes, and because you didn't want it, you didn't really think through if you can actually do it. Yeah. And then someone says, I'll take you on, and then they're like, oh shit, and they just get a crappy kind of facsimile of what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know I've been looking at bandsaw blades, because my bandsaw takes a very specific length. It's 30-80 millimeters, which you can't find very many of. So I've always bought them through Carbotech. And the last time I bought this blade, I think it was $40. And I went on yesterday and it was $71.
Right.
That's over 2-3 years. It's almost doubled in price.
I was just going to say, where do you get your blades sharpened? But then again, you don't have a table saw to get anything sharpened.
Yeah.
Any place that is going to sharpen your saw blades they'll make bandsaw blades for you, and they'll be $30 each. Every time I get mine, they're all custom made. I get all different thicknesses and TPIs and different for whatever I'm doing, and it's like $35 for a bandsaw blade, brand new, cut to length. It shouldn't be anything like $70.
I might look into that, because and this is not a reflection on Carbotech when I say this, but I'm generally unimpressed with the bandsaw blades that I get from them. The weld just seems to be shocking.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things you've got to remember that they're not producing the bandsaw blades, so they're buying,
exactly,
adding a margin on top. I would recommend Henry Brothers in Sydney.
Henry Brothers, all right.
Yeah, they've always been pretty good, good high quality, and deliver fast.
Yeah, bandsaw blades should be kind of dime a dozen because you go through them. Like whenever I buy them, I buy like 5 or 6 at a time because I typically allow, if I've got to do a lot of bandsawing, it's 1 per job because two per job. They're gonna break or get blunt, and there's no point trying to cut with a blunt tool. Just put a new blade on it. They're not that expensive. It's a bit like changing sandpaper on your orbital sander. You just do it regularly, and you can work faster.
I get the 19 or 20 mil blade, so it's a fairly big boy for the saw. And I find, that guy, admittedly, I'm not doing as much as you guys, but that saw will last me 6 months, or that blade will last me 6 months. Yeah. Yeah,
I would say I have blades that thick too, but you definitely need something smaller for doing actually anything with a curve, because you can't really get much of a radius on that, but yeah.
No.
I have literally changed my bandsaw blade changed the type of bandsaw blade that I've used probably 3 times in 10 years.
Oh, really?
I just don't use it to do compound cuts, or not compound cuts. I don't use it to do curved cuts. I'll just keep the resaw blade on it, make sure it's set up 90 degrees, nice big thick gullets on it, and boom, done.
Yeah.
But when you start to get into like the bimetal carbide teeth and things, they are expensive. So it's probably worth resharpening them maybe once in their life before the carbide gets down too much. But with cheaper blades, like Joey says, they are definitely disposable. Yeah. But what's happening with the market? What's happening with the market?
Yeah. So I've got what's today, the 3rd? So I've got 21 days, so 3 weeks. Right. I'm happy with where I'm at with my stock. So I've got about 8 serving boards, and then a whole bunch of other stuff as well. I'm hopefully going to get a couple more in the next few weeks. But I've had client work over the last 3 weeks, which has been awesome. It's timing is terrible, but the fact that I'm getting it in is pretty cool. And there's a woodworker here, Crackerjack's Woodworks, I think it is. And I've never met the guy before, but he's just, any jobs that he doesn't want, he's just sending my way. Nice. So I've had 2 bits of work, small projects, but it's an appropriate place to start for me, especially with my current full-time job. So I've had that on the go. I've got this market coming up. There was an advertising campaign run by Bosch recently. I don't know if you guys may have seen it on Instagram. It's like you try one of their tools and then you get to keep it, and it's this new range of tools. So I applied for that and got accepted, and so I've had to do some video work for these, but the timing of that has just been perfect, because essentially there's 2 tools that I applied for. The first one is a big rotary hammer drill.
Right.
This thing is an absolute beast. It's battery powered. It's Bryan, I don't know if you are aware of the different chuck sizes, but this is STS Max, which I've never used before. I've used the STS Plus, which is a bit smaller. This thing is just ridiculous.
Why do you need such a gigantic drill?
You gotta watch this video to find out why.
So next year, I've now been searching for jackhammer hire and see if there's anything on Marketplace, because I need to get rid of some concrete next year.
Right.
Everything's taken care of. I now have my amazing tool to pull up the concrete. Now they're sending me another tool. They haven't told me what it is, but I'm hoping it's the tool that I've chosen, which is a miter saw, compound sliding miter saw. Yeah. Because again, I don't have one in the shop, so it's going to be such a blessing to get that. We've talked about in the past taking on sponsored work.
Yeah.
It's always a bit scary because you turn people off immediately. As soon as you say to someone, I'm working for a big corporation, you're immediately a shill.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is one of those circumstances where I'm going, you know what, this is perfect. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna do my best with it because this is exactly what I need right now.
Well, awesome.
Got lights and sirens in the background. It's an ambulance.
At least they let you take the tool and sort of say what you wanted about it. Like it wasn't, here's a script to read it. That's okay. I think Bosch did something similar a few years ago. Bosch or Hikoki, I don't know. They reached out to a whole load of makers around Australia and just gave them a tool. You didn't even have to really produce a video or anything. It was like they just wanted the tool seen in your workshop. And that's, I mean, it's clever marketing. Because like, going back to the Jimmy DiResta conversation that we had, like we all have drills and things lying around. You're providing free advertising for them, you know. If you're buying it, maybe paint it white.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I think I was potentially successful with my application, is because I said in the application that this tool will be in my workshop going forward. So this, you know, it will get a lot more coverage just because it's in my workshop.
Yeah.
And that may have played into it. But it's also, I've been enjoying this because this is the direction that I want to go with my time. Obviously, I want to be a furniture maker like what you guys are doing. But more than that, I want to move towards being I'm not going to use the I word.
Oh, don't say it. Do not say it.
No one wants to be that. But a public figure would be a better one, where I am I want to be very advertiser friendly. So people come to me and say, we want to advertise on your socials.
Yep.
So working with Bosch on this, it's been a lot more contractual than all the other stuff that I've done.
Right.
You know, all the work I've done with TimberCon, this has been, you can do this. If you don't do this, you need to send us the tool back, because then you've failed to meet the agreement. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But very, very busy with that, with in the back of my mind, that market coming up.
And next year you're going to be a little bit more time in the workshop, or is that unconfirmed?
Unconfirmed at this stage, but it's 90% confirmed at this stage. I can't say much more than that for obvious reasons. Probably not a big deal, but for obvious reasons. But we can leave on a cliffhanger. Beginning of next season, this might be a very different landscape for me.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll be in a different city. You'll be in a different. What about you, Joey? What's happening?
Well, you know, it's gone from famine to feast for me. So I'm kind of looking at being booked out through to April. So
happy days.
Wow, that's awesome.
Busy. Like, assuming a couple of these things come through, like the stairs and associated work, I'm busy as shit. And actually, the phone hasn't stopped ringing this week. So it's really weird how it really was. After the election, boom, people started calling again. So I'm busy, and I'm just trying to plow through it and sort out my calendar. So I'm actually looking forward to being busy. I think I work better when I've got lots to do. It's never great when you've got time to twiddle your thumbs, and that's when you start slowing. Everything slows down, I think. So when you know you've got shit to get on with, you just get it done, and then you get paid, and there you go.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next year or so. It's going to be interesting. Yeah,
we've talked about wood dust already. I haven't heard anything about whether there's going to be a 2024, but I hope there is. Yeah. I really hope there is. Yeah, that'd be a good thing. Other than that, at least, even if there's just some kind of an opportunity for a meetup, you know, it doesn't have to be wood dust. Maybe there'll be something else on the go that we can be a part of.
I can host something at my new farm.
Whoop.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can take up Patrick's offer on the camping. We can all get together and have a camp one.
We were privately messaging about our new scheme, Woodworkers in the Woods, weren't we?
Yeah.
That's it.
We'll work out ticketing and get back to you.
All right, let's leave it there. Again, thanks to everyone for tuning in and listening. And again, thank you very much to all the donations. We really do appreciate it. And we'll see you guys again next year. Anything else you guys want to? Oh, actually, no. Sorry. That's very unprofessional of me. We did have one question come in. I put out an Instagram story yesterday to ask if anyone had a question. Heinz Woodworking got back to me. I apologize, mate, that it's right at the end of the episode, but hopefully you stuck around this long. He put out a question to say, is there a project that you've always wanted to build but haven't for whatever reason? So is there a project that you guys can think of that you've always wanted to do?
Still a kayak for me.
What's that?
It's always been a kayak or a bench strip canoe or something. Right. Still haven't done it. I've got a big river right in front of my workshop, and I've never done it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe when I get a home workshop and have evenings where I can do a little bit more stuff in the shop, maybe I'll set that as a project for next year. Yeah,
just have a spot in the corner where it lives while you're working. Yeah, that's good. For me, it's a workbench, a proper workbench. I know, Bryan, you've talked about that not being part of your workshop, and I think for me, it would probably be wasted on me because I'm not big hand tools. I don't really need the bench to be flat, but it's something that I've always wanted to build. A real beefy, chunky, not from pine 2x4s that I've milled down and glued up to make it look like it's a fancy beer, from an actual timber species that I've pulled out. Something African mahogany, for example, here. A real nice timber, and it's designed and spec'd and drawn up. It's got vices already part of the design. Again, it will probably just be a beautiful showpiece in my workshop that'll hardly get used. But I've always, I've got so many design ideas going back years. Timber lists, cut lists of exactly what I need, because I was a month away from going up the road to the woodworking studio to get the timber. I was so close, and then something came in. That's something that I'll eventually do, is a nice Rubo style workbench.
Interesting.
Somebody's been watching Nick Padula's videos, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, how's that thing, hey? Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. For me, I've talked about this before. The way I kind of honed my skills and tried to get myself into a headspace where I thought I could deserve the title of furniture maker was by just making all sorts of stuff that I had no business making. Rocking chairs, cabriolet legs, inlaid things, doing veneer work when I had no business doing it. And so I kind of, over the years, knocked off a bunch of my things I always wanted to try under the guise of, I need to do this to learn a new skill. And I don't know, there's nothing is popping into my head straight away. There's something I have wanted to do, I want to make that I haven't made yet. A lot of the things, like I made my bath, I made a federal style desk, the spiral staircase that I've done before, and another one coming up. There's like lots of really challenging jobs that I've already taken on. That's not to say something won't crop up in the future, but my main takeaway from all that is I learned so much making mistakes by trying all those crazy things that it makes me look forward to whatever the challenges that the next client brings to me. So that's about my answer for that.
That's a good answer.
Very philosophical. And now I'd just like to wish everyone a good summer and a nice break over Christmas with friends and family and all that sort of stuff. And we look back to
Christmas is coming up, hey?
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we look forward to coming back in the new year with some more fun guests. And we really do buzz off the interviews with the guests. I mean, like Joey said, it means that we have to do less work, especially when they can bundle up. But just, that ever-increasing network of people that we've got is a really nice thing, and especially introducing new makers to our listeners as well, like smaller makers, is something that I get a big kick out of.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm off down to the Gold Coast next week for work, and I was thinking to myself, right, who do I know that might be in the Gold Coast from all of our interviews? I don't think we have any Gold Coast. We haven't had any Gold Coast guests, but that's now the mindset. Is we've met so many people or spoken to so many people that if I go down to Sydney or Melbourne now, just take your pick. Who am I going to go see?
I reckon the Goldie is probably one of the only places in Australia where I don't know, like in major centres, that I don't know of any furniture makers.
No.
So if there is somebody from the Gold Coast listening out, reach out to Robin and show him the delightful strip of the Gold Coast.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys, take it easy,
boys.
and we will catch up again next year.
Good luck. See us.
2024.